A drone records an image that should never have been seen. A remarkable event so astonishing that it stuns the entire world. What exactly has been captured, and what makes it so shocking? Let's uncover the truth. The sun set below the horizon, casting long shadows along the Norfolk coastline. The marshland, usually calm and untouched, now felt strange in the fading light. Frank Finch, a lively 75-year-old with a love for adventure, walked through the tall reeds, his boots sinking into the soft ground. He had gone a bit further than usual, drawn in by the calls of distant seabirds and the salty breeze on his weathered face. Frank loved these walks. Retirement had given him a new energy. But today felt different. The marshes seemed thicker, and the paths were less familiar. He remembered telling his friends to go ahead while he stopped to admire a rare marsh orchid blooming by the water. He knelt down to look closely, tracing the delicate petals with his fingers, completely taken by the plant's beauty. When he stood up, the laughter and chatter of his friends had faded away. He followed the path he thought they had taken, but the more he walked, the more lost he felt. The reeds grew taller, blocking his view of the horizon, and the soft sound of water beneath his feet warned him that the tide was coming in. Frank paused to wipe the sweat from his brow. He could hear gulls crying overhead, but there was no sign of his friends. Trying not to panic, he kept going. He had explored these marshes many times before, but never this deep. The landscape changed with the fading light, and familiar sights now looked strange. His boots squelched in the thickening mud, and the ground became softer and more dangerous with each step. After wandering for an hour, Frank reached the edge of a shallow pool. He tested the ground ahead with his walking stick, but when he stepped forward, his foot sank deep into the marsh. He struggled to pull it out, only to have his other foot slip beneath the surface. A wave of tiredness washed over him. With great effort, Frank managed to pull himself onto a firmer patch of ground, breathing heavily. The reeds swayed gently around him in the evening breeze, but everything else felt eerily quiet. He realized he had wandered much further than he meant to. Night was coming quickly, and the air grew colder with each passing minute. Frank sat for a moment, trying to gather his thoughts. He remembered an old lesson his father had taught him about marshlands. If you're stuck, stay put, and wait for the tide to drop. That advice seemed practical enough, but as he glanced around, he couldn't help but feel the creeping isolation settling in. The marsh, once a place of tranquility, now felt like a living entity shifting and breathing around him. As twilight deepened, Frank knew he had to conserve his energy. He leaned against the reeds, tucking his arms close to his chest for warmth. His eyes scanned the marshland one last time, hoping for a glimpse of movement, but all he could see was the vast expanse of water and reeds stretching endlessly into the fading light. The stars began to emerge, twinkling faintly above the Norfolk marshes. Frank, despite the circumstances, found solace in their presence. One step at a time, he whispered to himself, knowing that at dawn he would try again to find his way back. Until then, he listened to the sounds of the marsh, the distant lapping of water and the occasional rustle of unseen creatures, and let the night envelop him. At the same time, Frank's friends had reached the Brancaster pub, expecting to see him nursing a pint by the fire. The warm hum of conversation filled the room, and the familiar crackle of the fireplace offered comfort against the cool evening air. Jack Ellis scanned the crowded pub, his eyes narrowing as he searched for Frank's familiar tweed cap and walking stick. When he failed to spot his old friend, he assumed Frank had simply taken the long way around. "He's probably admiring the moonlight over the marsh," Jack remarked with a chuckle, easing onto a bar stool. "You know how he gets when he finds something interesting out there." The others nodded in agreement, raising their glasses to Frank's adventurous spirit. But as the minutes stretched into an hour, Jack's humor waned. Frank was never late for their evening drink, and his absence grew more troubling with each passing moment. "It's not like him to be this late," muttered Jane Porter, one of Frank's closest companions. "Maybe he just lost track of time." Jack frowned and glanced at the clock above the bar. "Even if he did, it's getting dark fast. We should have seen him by now." By 9:00 p.m., concern had settled heavily over the group. Jack decided to retrace their earlier route, hoping Frank might still be wandering along the path. He and Jane lit their lanterns and walked along the edge of the marsh, calling out Frank's name into the darkness. Their voices echoed through the reeds but were met only by the soft rustling of the wind. After a fruitless hour of searching, Jack returned to the pub, his face pale. "I'm calling the Coast Guard," he announced, pulling his phone from his coat pocket. The pub quieted as the realization set in. Frank was truly missing. Within the hour, a small search party had assembled. Volunteers armed with flashlights and walking sticks spread out along the marsh paths. A few locals brought their dogs, hoping their keen noses might pick up Frank's scent. The search party was familiar with the area, but navigating the marsh at night was treacherous. "Stay on the paths," Jack reminded everyone as they set out. "The marsh can swallow a man whole if he wanders too far off." The hours crept by, and the search party's optimism began to wane. The marsh seemed endless, an unforgiving maze of reeds and waterlogged ground. By midnight, exhaustion set in. The dogs whined, tugging at their leashes, and the volunteers' flashlights flickered as their batteries dwindled. "We'll start again at dawn," Jack said reluctantly, rubbing his temples. "I don't want anyone else getting hurt out there." As the group dispersed, Wyatt Ellis, Jack's teenage grandson, lingered behind. "Granddad, wait, what about the drone?" he asked, tugging on Jack's sleeve. "Couldn't we use that to cover more ground?" Jack's brow furrowed. "The drone? Yeah, remember? Helen Marsh mentioned the police had one at the station. It has an infrared camera. If Frank's out there, it might pick up his heat signature." Jack's eyes lit up with renewed hope. "You're right, I'll call Helen." 15 minutes later, Helen arrived at the marsh with the police drone, drawing a small crowd as she set it up. "Let's hope this works," she said, launching the drone into the air. Its camera streamed live footage of the marsh below, but at first, there was nothing, just endless land reflecting the moonlight. Suddenly, a faint glow appeared on the screen. "There?" Helen exclaimed, zooming in on a figure huddled against the reeds. "That's him." Jack's heart raced. "We need to get to him now." Guided by the drone, volunteers rushed through the marsh. When they found Frank, he was cold and weak but alive. "Took you long enough," he croaked with a faint smile. As they helped him to his feet, he collapsed again, too weak to walk. "We can't carry him like this," Jack said, glancing at the terrain. "He needs medical attention fast." Helen radioed for a rescue helicopter, which arrived moments later. Frank winced as the team secured him, but he squeezed Jack's hand, saying, "Thanks for not giving up on me." "We weren't about to let the marsh keep you," Jack replied. The helicopter lifted Frank into the sky, and by the time the group returned to the village, word had spread. Frank was safe. Later that morning, Jack sat by Frank's bedside at the local hospital, watching his friend rest peacefully. The ordeal had taken its toll, but Frank's strength was slowly returning. "You're not getting rid of me that easily," Frank said with a grin, his voice stronger than before. Jack chuckled. "Next time, let's stick to the walking paths." The footage captured by the drone quickly went viral after the local news station shared the dramatic rescue. The haunting image of Frank, frail and stranded in the marsh, struck a chord with viewers worldwide. His small, shivering figure against the vast, unforgiving landscape painted a powerful picture, one that resonated deeply with people across social media. #FrankInTheMarsh began trending within hours, with thousands praising the quick thinking of Jack, Helen, and Wyatt. Many called it a testament to the power of technology and community. "This could have ended in tragedy," one commenter noted, "but thanks to the drone and the people of Brancaster, Frank's story has a happy ending." The incident sparked national interest in the use of drones for search and rescue, with experts highlighting how thermal imaging could significantly reduce the time needed to find missing persons in difficult terrains. Jack, modest about his role, said, "We just did what any friends would do." His grandson Wyatt was credited with the key suggestion that led to the rescue. As Frank recovered in the hospital, he received an outpouring of support, including flowers and gag gifts. Jack visited daily, sharing news and heartfelt messages. Frank joked, "I can't believe I'm famous for getting stuck in the mud." Inspired by his ordeal, local authorities launched a campaign to secure more drones for emergencies. At a community event celebrating Frank's recovery, Helen emphasized the importance of being prepared for future incidents. Frank raised his glass, toasting to drones and the people who fly them. What a wonderful conclusion to what might have been a tragic situation. Should police drones be considered a vital tool for surveillance, or do they infringe on privacy? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay updated with our channel. Thank you.